Welcome back everyone in the business research method class. My name is Dr. Manisha Gupta. I am assistant professor in Noida Institute of Engineering and Technology in MBA department, and in today's lecture we are going to discuss about the scientific inquiry, and in scientific inquiry we are going to especially discuss about the formulation of the research problem. So these topic we are going to discuss today start with the scientific inquiry and its function and the formulation of the research problem. In the formulation of the research problem, we are going to discuss about research problem, purpose of the problem statement, basic characteristics of the research problem, way to formulate the research problem, and the basic steps in formulating the research problem. So we start with scientific inquiry. In the last lecture, we discussed about the scientific method, and in this lecture, we are going to discuss about scientific inquiry. As the name suggests, what do you mean by science? Science is all about the learning and understanding something new. And what do you mean by inquiry? Inquiry means the ask the information or the investigate any type of the information, find out something new, more, inquire about the things. So the literal meaning of the scientific inquiry is the scientific inquiry refers the diverse way in which the scientists study the natural world and propose the expansion based on the evidence derived from their work. So it is basically the inquiry in which the scientists inquire whatever in the natural setting, they inquire the different problem, different information in the natural settings, and they derive the explanation and the conclusion from it, and based on their evidences conclusion they formulate or the solve the certain issue. The scientific inquiry included the traditional science process, but it also referred to the combining of these processes with the scientific knowledge, the critical thinking and the scientific reasoning to develop the scientific knowledge. So in the scientific inquiry, we do the critical thinking, we do the scientific reasoning, we develop the scientific knowledge which is based on the explanation, evidences and a proof. So to move forward, what is the function of the scientific inquiry? So there are broadly the two functions of the scientific inquiry. The first is to provide the description of the how the scientific inquiry is conducted in practice. Means it formulates the process through which we inquire and or we develop our research or the steps. So in the first step, we describe how the scientific inquiry will be conducted in a practice, means how we are going to conduct the study. And the second function is it gives the explanation of the why scientific inquiry is successful in arriving at the genuine knowledge at the end of the process, and it also gives us the explanation why the scientific inquiry is successful. The scientific inquiry does not deal only with the subjects related to the science, but it has a wide application in the social sciences, in management, in business. So it basically deals with the way in which we inquire, and the way in which we inquire is a scientific way. The scientific inquiry extends beyond the development of the process skill such as observing, inferring, classifying, predicting, measuring, questioning, interpreting and analyzing. So it is just not only the way in which we observe or infer, it has much broader perspective and it has much broader application. In the scientific inquiry, we are going to study the 4 points: the formulation of the research problem, management question, research question and investigation question. But in this lecture, we are going to discuss only about the formulation of the research problem. So first of all, what is the research problem? A research problem is a statement about the area of the concern, a condition to be improved, a difficulty to be eliminated or the troubling question that exists in the scholarly literature. In the theory or in a practice, the point to be needed for the meaningful understanding and deliberate the investigation. So, basically what is the research problem? It is the problem which it is basically the broad problem. Take an example of today's scenario, or I take the example of the Indian economy. Like suppose whenever the prices of the crude oil increase in the international market, then it affects our economy in a multiple folds, especially it lead to the inflation, and in the inflation it will lead to the food inflation. So, we can take the problem that how the rising of the crude oil prices impact the rise in the prices of the food. Then in the social sciences, the discipline, the research problem is typically posed in the form of the question, like as I discussed earlier, that the impact of the rise of the petrol prices in the international market lead to the increase in the prices of the foods and vegetables. So, we can form a question like why the increasing of the crude oil prices impact the food market of India. The research problem does not how to do something, offer a vague or broad proposition at the present in the value question. So, the research problem does not only deal to improve or we have to eliminate. There are the many examples which you can take, like if any company is suffering from the turnover, major employees turnover, like their turnover rate is quite high. So, for them it is a kind of the research problem which is a broader in perspective. In the research problem, we take the broad perspective and we narrow down it in the process. The purpose of the research statement: introduce the reader to the importance of the topic being studied. The first thing is the research problem introduce the reader that the what is the topic we are going to study, what the problem we are facing. The reader is oriented to the significance of the study and the research question hypothesis to be followed, and as the time passes or as the time lead, the reader increase their orientation, or he can tilt themselves more toward the significance of the study, like why it is important to study, and they can form the research question or the formulate hypothesis on it. Next point is place the problem into the particular context that define the parameters of what is to be investigated, and in this point it places the problem into the particular context. यानी कि take example like employees turnover. So, we deal with the problem, then why we formulated the problem, that further we are going to investigate it, find out the reason why the employees turnover is high in that particular company, and we will resolve the issue. Next is provide the framework for reporting the result, indicates what is probably necessary to conduct the study, and explain how the finding will present this information, and it is also the implication on that what is necessary to study. By formulating the problem statement, we are also dealing with how we are going to conduct the study, how we have to present the form, we will present our findings or information, or how we are going to conduct a study, how we are going to explain our findings. So, these are also because of how we make our problem statement, or the what problem statement we have taken. Next, the basic characteristics of the research problem. The basic characteristics of the research problem is it reflecting on important issues or need. It most of the time it deal with the important issues or need of the company or organization or society. Like in the present time, for most of the pharmaceutical company, what is the research problem? To find to get a cure for the COVID, or make the vaccine more impactful. Next is point is based on the factual evidence, not the hypothetical not the hypothetical. The research question is always based on the factual evidence. We did not work on our institution. Like I take again the previous example, like the impact of the rising of the crude oil prices on the food product, because we have taken it happened many times. Whenever the prices was crude oil prices was increased, then it lead to the rise in the food prices. So we have the factual evidence, we have the facts for it, that it is directly or indirectly impacting the prices of the product. Next point is being the manageable and relevant. What do you mean by the manageable and the relevant? That there is the number of the problem around you. As if you are the business working in any environment, you are facing the number of the problem. So you have to pick a problem which you can manage, which you can control. You have to do the study on that. The factor on which you don't have any say, or you cannot control that, so we cannot do the research on it, and it always relevant to your interest, to your company interest, to your organization interest, to the society interest, or as a country at large. For this I take the example that being manageable or relevant, like every time when there is an election in around the world, the different countries, the prime minister's election or the president election, it directly or indirectly impact the market. So we cannot control it, we cannot manage that type of the research. So it is not we don't do the such type of the thing which we cannot able to manage, or also that it may we don't have certain type of the resources or the raw material to conduct the type of the study which we don't have the sources. Next is suggesting the testable and the meaningful hypothesis. The hypothesis is basically the problem statement which we take in the initial stage of the research. So we always suggest the meaningful and the testable hypothesis, means the hypothesis which we are suggesting we can test a certain type of the hypothesis. Like if you are doing on the space research, you are conducting certain type of the study, so you can take only those type of the study which you can able to prove it, which you can able to test it. So in the research on the research problem, most of the time we take the research problem which we can test it and which give the meaningful hypothesis to us. Next, ways to formulate the research problem. The formulating the research problem enable you to make the purpose of your study clear to yourself and the target reader. The way to formulate means whenever we formulate the study, it is always related to the our purpose of study, what we are going to do, why we are going to do, for whom we are going to do, who is the target audience for that. Like if you are doing the market research, then there is only the two target person, one is business, second is your customer. So they are the target audience. So whatever you do, you will keep those two target audience in your mind. Focus your paper on providing the relevant data to addresses. The problem statement is an effective and essential tool to keep you on the track with the research and evaluate. There are the few ways through which we formulate our research problem. The first is specify your research objective. So research is always start with a certain type of the objectives. So whenever we take the objective, like you are taking the objective to increase the income of your company. So these are the basic objective. And in the research problem formulation, you are identifying the reason, what the obstacle you are going to face, or how you can improve your research. So basically whatever the research objective you have taken, you have to specify it, or you take the broader point and you segregate it. Next is review its content on environment. The review its content on environment is necessary to work hard to define the all kind of the environmental variable. By this point we study what are the how the environment is impacting our business, or whatever the topic you have taken, whatever the problem you have taken or objectives of your research you have. So, how the environment is impacting on it. So, by studying the environment, by studying the variables working in the environment, you can derive your research problem. Next is explore its nature. The explore is nature may range from the simple to complex, yani whatever the research you are doing, it may be simple, the problem may be your problem may be the simple, your problem may be the complex, your problem may be have depend upon the number of the variables, maybe they have a relationship with one impact to the other, or one variable has impact on the number of the variables, or whatever the point you have studying, they have impact by the number of factors. Next is determine the variable relationship. Whatever the factors working in, whatever the variable you have taken in a study, how they are impacting each other, like supply and demand, always correlated, that how the demand and supply, demand will increase, then it lead to the supply also led to increase, and it also impacted the prices. In the business you see, and if you talk about the employee satisfaction, then the number of the variables which impact employee satisfaction impacted by their compensation practices of the company, their peer relationship, then work environment, their physical setting. So, how the variables are impacting, you can we can derive our research problem from it. Next is alternative approach. The alternative approach means basically the possible consequence of the alternative approach, like how the one approach is affecting the other, or whenever we have a problem, we do not have the one solution, we have the multiple solution. So, how the other solution helps you, and in this way when you are studying the alternatives, when you are studying the alternative approach or the different approach to solve your problem, you can define the research problem from it also. Next is the basic steps in formulating the research problem. What is the most essential part of the research project is the formulating of the research problem, because your research problem lead your research. Whatever the problem we have formulate in initial stages, we are going we work on that particular problem. So, the most essential step of the any kind of the research is formulation of their research problem. It is obvious that the formulating the research problem or selecting your research topic, this is because the quality and the relevance of your research project completely depend on it. Your quality of the research, your relevance of the research is completely depend on the research problem. The process of the formulating the research requires a series of this step. Although these steps vary from the different one institution to the other, one book to the other, but we have taken one series of the step through which we formulate our research problem. So, there are basically we have taken 7 steps on the basis we formulate our research problem. First is identify the broad study area. This is the great idea of the thinking about the subject area of your interest. You should identify the field in which you think you like to work a long time after your academic study or the graduation. It will help you tremendously to get an interesting research topic. So, identify the broad area of study means you will take the broad area, like if we talk about the management research, then there are the many areas like HR, marketing, international business, then finance. So, whatever interest you have or whatever subject you have the specialization, so in the starting you take that broad idea or broad area. Suppose I take the example of the marketing, and By taking the example of the marketing, we see how it is going to divide and how we will get the research problem in that particular area. So, in the second step, dissect the broad study into the sub areas. At this stage, you need to dissect and specify your research broad study area into the sub areas. You would consult with the supervisor in this regard or write down the sub area. Like at the first stage, I take the example of the marketing, and in this step, because if we talk about the marketing, marketing has itself a very wide stream. It has the different sub area like service marketing, retail, sales and distribution, digital marketing, digital social media marketing. So, we can dissect that broad area into the multiple sub area. Next point is mark up your interest. At the almost impossible to study all sub area, that is why you must identify your area of interest. You should select the issue in which you are passionate about. Your interest must be or the most important determinant of your research study. So, at the second stage, I bifurcated the marketing into the various sub areas, and at the third stage, we have to take the whatever the sub we have bifurcated our topic in the multiple sub area, we can pick one sub area. So, suppose I take the sub area like the social media marketing or digital marketing, because if we talk about the social media marketing or the digital marketing, the social media marketing is a part of the basically the digital marketing, and the digital marketing is a part of the marketing. Now, in the next point, study research question. At this step is formulating the research problem. You would point out your research question under the area of the interest you decide to in the previous stage. Like at the broad stage, I have taken the marketing, then I divided into the number of stage like the service marketing, retailing, digital marketing. So, at that stage, at stage 3, I have taken the digital marketing. So, at the fourth stage, in this area, you have to find out your research question, because digital marketing is also have the broad perspective. So, in that perspective, you have to take your area of the interest where you want to do a study or where you find the problem. Like I take the the objective like the social impact of the social media marketing on the sales of the such and such company, or the impact of the people perception about the social media marketing, and or we can talk about the how the social media marketing disrupting our small businesses or retail businesses. Now, in the next point, set out the objectives. Like in the previous stage, I take the example how the social media marketing impacting the small businesses. Now, we set out the objective, set out the objective of your research, the research root objective, sub objective, research objective essentially come from the research question. So, here I have taken the research question like how the social media marketing negatively impact the retail businesses. In the next step, assess your objective. Like I have taken the objective, like we are going to study about how the social media marketing is impacting the retail businesses. Now, you should evaluate your objective to make sure the possibility of the attainment them through your research study. Assess your objective in term of the time, budget, resources, technical expertise at your hand. Means either you have a certain type of the resources, you have budget, you have a time to conduct this study. Now, the next point is check back. Before you go on the research work, you should review all the steps formulating in the research problem, and at the time goes on, you cross check your research questions, your objective, and at the every step of your formulation, you have to keep in the mind that whatever decision you are taking, it should not be emotionally, it should be always scientific and based on the evidences. In the last step, you will at the last step, the thing that you have done till now for the purpose of your research study, then ask yourself about it, that how you are feeling, how you are enthusiastic, and always be focused to your problem and your research. So, for today, this is all. Thank you everyone. We will see you in the next session.